The hardest tentacle to cut off, I might even cry when I say this, was closing the gym. How do I start a parkour community? And the one thing I say is consistency. That's critical because your employees are your business. They are, your coaches are the product that you're selling to your customers.
Parkour gym owner, business owner, community, welcome back to the Motion Mentors podcast. Today we have a super special guest on, Mr. Mark Toorock, who has been in the parkour game for as long as I can remember. The last 20 years I've seen this guy contributing to the parkour industry, to parkour athletes directly, myself included. The owner of American Parkour, which has seen multiple iterations and transformations and has made huge impact and contributions to the parkour industry inside and outside of it over the last 2 decades at this point. So Mark, welcome to the call. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And also we have Christopher Hollingsworth on here. Hey, Chris.
Hi, Jimmy. Hey, Mark. And also everybody listening. Super excited to be a part of this call.
So I've known about American Parkour since literally the beginning of my parkour journey. They were the first big company that I ever discovered. Their APK forums back in the day were really instrumental to helping me just get involved in parkour and fall in love with it. So I have so many questions that we could jump into, of course, and my intention with this interview is just to pick Mark's 20 years plus, because I know you were up to a lot before you got into parkour, 20 years plus experience to see what we can bring into the parkour business owners conversation at large and try to spread some wisdom around. So Mark, give us an idea of the beginning of your parkour entrepreneurial journey. How did you get started? Where were you? And what was the journey from like zero to, let's say, your first 10,000 in revenue, whatever you were up to at that time?
I think I've hit 10,000 by now. I'd have to go back and count. So I was living in London. I was a technology manager for an investment bank. And I saw one of the early David Bell videos and I was just blown away. I was like, everything at the time, they were getting really good at CGI to the point where sometimes you could or couldn't tell whether it was a wire stunt or it was just completely made up fantasy. And then I saw this video of this guy jump across 2 buildings and do a handstand on a railing, like who knows how many stories up. And I was like, that's real. That guy just did that. And what's his confidence? What's his mindset that he can do that? Because he doesn't seem to be suicidal. And he doesn't just seem to be an adrenaline junkie. He seems to actually be a master of his environment and himself and his environment. And I was so intrigued by that. And it sort of tied to some of the training that I had done in martial arts. And so I just saw this thing and I thought, this is really cool. It's something that I want to do. And sure enough, within 2 years, I quit my job. And I thought maybe I'd go and be a personal trainer. And one of the things David Bell had said is that he would like to start a Shaolin temple for parkour. And that really resonated with me. And of course, I have a lot of reverence for Shaolin and in the history of martial arts. And so I started a parkour gym. And it was 2005 and nobody, and I mean nobody, had heard of parkour. We're talking about before James Bond Casino Royale. A couple of people saw Jump London, a couple of people saw the Ripley's Believe It or Not episode, but really people didn't know they needed parkour back then. So it was really slow going. And my, when we talk about my first 10,000, it was a grind. And if we're talking about net positive 10,000, then it was really a grind. Like it might be several years in of running the gym and things like that. And this comes across weird to a lot of people, but I'm money agnostic. The money isn't the thing that I care about at all. So frankly, I've probably put more into APK than I've taken out of it at this point. So it's made some good revenue. It's had years over 500,000, but that money has gone mostly to coaches, employees, growth. We just bought a forklift. So, I'd rather have a forklift than a paycheck, because now with a forklift, I can make and sell more equipment and distribute more stuff. So I hope that answered the question.
Yeah. So in the beginning, you started your first parkour gym. Was that Primal Fitness in DC?
That was Primal Fitness in DC, exactly.
Yeah. So I've had the pleasure of having been there a couple of times. And for anyone who hasn't, this is obviously one of the first parkour gyms on the planet ever. And at least the version I saw, it was like a CrossFit gym on the bottom half originally, I think, and then a parkour space above. Tell us a little bit about like what that model was like, what worked, what didn't work, and yeah, just your experience.
So it actually started in another building before that, where they were both in, I want to say it was maybe 1,400 square feet. And so I was making the CrossFit equipment, and I made what I think might be the first vault box. I was making the CrossFit equipment, I was making plyo boxes, and I was like, what if I made one of these plyo boxes tall enough that we could vault over it? And so I just did. I took a trapezoidal plyo box and I just made it 30 inches tall and made a vault box. And so we had like that and just like very sparse parkour equipment. But we had the training, we had the idea. And I think that being aligned with CrossFit in the early days was a big help, because it helped. Jesse Woody, who started the gym, was a very, very early adopter of CrossFit. I was an early adopter. Our gym was CrossFit affiliate number 54. So I think there's over 15,000 now. So we were pretty early days there. And having that tie to this black box fitness initiative and that view of how parkour could help people's lives, I think was a big part of being able to start a gym that was successful. I think that one of the key ingredients in having a successful parkour gym is helping people realize what it's doing for them, why they need it. A lot of people don't even know why they need certain types of training, and that's why they go to a coach, they go to an expert. So we started that, and I think that the model, our dream was that people would do CrossFit and parkour, and there were, in 20 years, there were 6 people who did that, and 2 of us were coaches. So I think that one of the issues was people want to be good at something kind of right away, right? We all like that instant gratification. And so parkour and CrossFit both take time to get good at, and most people didn't want to take the time to advance both at a medium pace. They wanted to increase their lifts, or they wanted to get better at parkour fast. And so if I had my way, people would work first on their sleep habits, they would work on their mental health, then they would work on what they're eating, and then they would do physical exercise. And here's the key to that. I call it RTFM, which is rest, think, fuel, move. If you're too tired to think, then you won't take care of yourself, and you won't be motivated to eat well, and you won't have the energy to move well. So if you mix up that order, it really doesn't work. You can try hard. You can't out-train a bad diet. You can't out-train bad sleep, right? And you can't outthink any of that if you're depressed, because you have this screwed up sleep cycle and your hormones don't get to balance and you don't feel good about yourself and you don't care to do all those things. So I originally wanted people to do both parkour and CrossFit, and it turned out that that was kind of too big of an ask, and people went one way or the other. And so we kept them both going for 17 years or something like that.
Yeah. So you had an idea to sort of build up the human before you started building the athlete. I think that's a pretty good holistic way to look at it, especially for a beginner, especially for an adult beginner trying to get back into fitness and trying to figure out their own body and then how to have fun with movement. So definitely a respectable way to approach that. I know that after at least some amount of time, the CrossFit downstairs started being deprioritized, and I think it started to slowly become like you had like a 2-tier gym, which was in an old firehouse, which I thought was super cool when I was there. The bottom story, which was CrossFit, slowly evolved into a parkour space as well. What was that transition like? Like, why did you pivot more into parkour? And then my next question is like, when did like the clothing and the outreach and the forums, like when did you go from just a box, so one location, to attempting to be like the at least the digital communal hub for parkour in America, which is how I found you guys?
I think we were actually that hub first. And so we actually, when we started Primal Fitness, to us, that was parkour and fitness together. And I think it was, I want to say 5 years in, we changed the name to APK Academy, because we had this huge community for American parkour. We had something like 125,000 followers on Facebook somehow, but they didn't see Primal Fitness as theirs. They didn't connect to it. And we had the APK forums, which you mentioned earlier, that already existed. That was pretty solid from 2004 on, and was really kind of probably in its heyday in the 2009 to 2011. I think in 2011, I went to like 21 jams across the country. So jams were huge. They were everywhere. We had all these national jams and El Salvador, like they were just all over the place. And so I think for us, it was a matter of trying to tie those two communities together. And we always wanted the gym to be that community's home. But obviously, a physical location can only be home to people that can drive to it. So that's a very limited scope by nature. So I think one of the things that I would love for parkour business owners is to watch this video. It's about why gas stations are always on the same corner. And the fact is, if you had another parkour gym right next to yours, you would both do more business than you do right now. And I know that sounds counterintuitive and it sounds like competition, but the fact is, the more people that are advertising parkour as a viable fitness, exercise, fun, recreation, activity, whatever those positive benefits are, the more people that are talking about that and doing it and offering it, the rising tide raises all ships. And in terms of the when, it really went back and forth quite a bit. Over the years, parkour supported CrossFit, CrossFit supported parkour. And it went in maybe, I want to say like 2-year waves for whatever reason. There were times when the CrossFit, we had 150 members and parkour was down to 40 members. And then there were times that parkour shot up to, and it wasn't, we weren't good at marketing. We didn't have, I'll take a moment, Jimmy, to just give a shout out to the work that you've done, with Chris and that whole thing. You've done incredible work towards actually, I'm going to use the word scientific, but applying a business mind and sound principles to marketing, to parkour business. We weren't doing that. We weren't doing any of that. We were having fun. We knew we had a great thing, but we didn't know anything about all those other things, and we didn't know how to do it. And that's why I'm so happy that you're here helping the community do this. Both of you are here helping the community do this, because there really are a lot of tools that just work. And I think that parkour people, ADHD people, just want to do everything themselves. We're self-starters, and that is a double-edged sword, because there are great tools and great knowledge out there. And a lot of times we'd be so much better off if we just paid the person that already knew what they were doing to come and teach us that thing. It could cut years off of your growth cycle.
Okay, so the video about gas stations on the same corner, I'll link that in the show notes for anyone who wants to see that. But I definitely agree, when there's more voices lending more just energy into bringing people into the communication and into the idea of parkour, there's more energy, there's more people, more conversation. It just raises the level of legitimacy to someone who maybe they only saw parkour from The Office, God forbid, so when they see actually there's multiple people talking about the benefits of parkour and that parkour really is a sport that you can participate in, and there's multiple on the same corner, like the gas station analogy, it really does invite people in. So Mark, you're familiar with the business Two Brain. They help CrossFit gym owners and other fitness gym owners. You just reminded me of a meme that they put out as part of their marketing. And they had this image where it was like a really poorly drawn person with like the ugly forehead, kind of like representing like a dumb person. And then it had like a really smart, like sophisticated person. And then it had like an enlightened, like big brain person. And it at the dumb person, I'm using air quotes with the dumb person, it basically said like, too dumb, can't run business, need help. And then like the caption was like, hired mentor. And then the medium one was like, I can do this on my own. And then caption was, doesn't hire mentor, struggles for 20 years. And then the like big enlightened one with the big brain energy was like, I'm enlightened, I need help, gets mentor, like gets success fast. So it's interesting that like the people who just like, I don't get it, I need help, and the people who are like, I do understand that I do need help, are kind of both the same answer. And it's that valley in between where you're like, you know what, I can do this on my own. I'm gonna find all the mistakes on my own. I'm gonna figure it all out from the ground up. Kind of tends to be the slowest, most painful solution, which I ran into.
It's the one that so many choose. I think about this. I do a lot of trail running, and where I am is particularly rocky. So the Appalachians are the oldest mountain range in the country. So you're literally running on the top of the mountains. It's like, I call it Stegosaurus back. Like the stones are sticking straight out of the ground. And I think about this all the time because that is the path that I've chosen my entire life, is the rockiest, most ankle twisting, brutal terrain. And it's like, why? Why didn't I run down the paved street, right? And so I think there's fun to it, there's challenge to it, but it really depends. Are you trying to strengthen your ankles, or are you trying to get somewhere? If you're trying to get somewhere, take the paved road, put the keys in the car and go. We have vehicles to get there. So if you're trying to get somewhere, use the tools that will get you there in the fastest, safest, surest method. I think would be my message for people. And again, I am all for banging your head on the wall. I'm all for grabbing a bunch of 2x4s and glue and sticks and trying to make something. I love that stuff. But you probably didn't make your own car. I mean, maybe you did. I did at one point. I mean, not make my own, but rebuilt the engine and all that stuff. Why? Like, just go buy a car, right? It depends on, and again, if you're doing it because building that car is fun, that's great. If you're trying to get to the grocery store, you probably don't have 10 years to build a car to go buy your groceries. You'll starve to death. So
yeah. And I think a lot of people can relate to what you've shared in so many ways, one of which being so many gym owners and entrepreneurs that I come across in this industry start in really similar ways that you did, where you were so inspired by parkour and it gave you something that you wanted to share with everybody else. And that was your focus, was community. And that was your focus, was like really strong instruction and value. And also, you said earlier that there was like, you were, I think you had an aversion to making money, almost, something to that effect. And that is common, and what I come across with that is a lot of people have an aversion to making money because they don't want to shortchange their customers. They don't want to ever have money be a bar of entry for movement. They always want movement to be something that's accessible and available to their community. And, you know, Jimmy and I have worked with entrepreneurs and with business owners with that exact same mindset. And there's a way to honor that mindset and to honor you know, making movement available for everyone in the community and charging enough money to pay your coaches a livable wage and, you know, hire the right structures that you need, like a sales team, having a head coach in place, having a general manager in place, having paid trainings where people are learning how to, you know, actually deliver that kind of experience to kids where they're coming back consistently, like you're saying, you know, and luckily Jimmy and I have been on that route, and we can say, hey, here's all the pitfalls and the hurdles and how to fast track your business to that. Here's the key components that are missing that if you just plug this in, it's available. But I also am a guy, Mark, that, you know, I spent 4 years learning how to butterfly twist, and I loved every second of it. You know, it's I love the challenge of figuring it out as well. And even though I can now teach someone how to do a butterfly twist in 30 minutes, I can give them all the components that they'll need to master that. I still really enjoyed that process. And that's why we've also made our resources completely available on our blog. So if you're an entrepreneur or you're a business owner listening to this, and you just need like a tweak in the right direction, chances are Jimmy or myself have created a topic that will help you out in the specific instance that you're dealing with. And that's also why we have conversations with people like you, Mark, you know, because you have such a specific expertise and professionalism after having been in the industry for decades, literally decades. Who can say that, you know? So yeah, I think everything that you're saying is very relatable for everybody listening.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, and I just want to add to that. I think you're spot on. I think that one of the things that's tough to realize as the person who doesn't want to have the money be first upfront, right? We swore, Jesse and I swore we would never make people sign a contract. We changed that. But I mean, we like cut our hands and spit and shook on it and like mud wrestled each other, swearing as brothers in arms that we will never make someone sign a contract to come to our gym. And the fact is, you have to. And the fact is, if you bring in more money, you can help more people, right? You can't deliver your services. One of the things I may someday write a book, and if I do, it's going to be called Selfish, Self-ish. And the first chapter is going to be, please put your oxygen mask on first, right? Because how many gym owners get to a point where they're struggling, they're so stressed out, strung out, frankly depressed, that they can't help anybody. You can't help someone if you're not breathing, if you're not eating, if you're not sleeping. You're not bringing that energy and love and joy of movement to other people. They're just seeing you be stressed out. And they're like, why are you stressed out? And you're like, oh, well, my gym doesn't have any money. They're like, well, then charge people more than $7 a month. You know, like you gym owners, I'm talking to you, you deserve it. You deserve it. You are providing something that is valuable, and you are valuable, and you deserve to do that from a position of relative comfort.
Yeah, and being able to have comfort prevents you from having burnout, prevents you from closing your gym as soon as the first like catastrophic thing comes your way. So yeah, I think you're spot on with that, Mark. Any gym owners, if you know you're already suffering in the price department, reach out to us. We have a price increase strategy and letter template, and even a way to make it feel good and rewarding to your members. Gets them rallied behind the idea that this price increase is tied to a value increase, an experience increase, and we tie it to your mission too. You know, if Freedom Motion and Motion Mentors' mission is to teach 1 million people parkour, if we're broke and dead in a ditch and out of business, we can't do that with anybody. So I love that you said that, Mark. So at this point, you have you have Primal, you've turned it into the APK Academy, you already have vibrant forums, and you're connecting, hundreds of thousands of people in the States to parkour. And right around 2007, I was one of them, and I loved those forums. It's so fun. So moving past maybe 2012, 2011, what were some of the pivots APK made along the way? What were some things you tried, some things that were successful, and maybe some that weren't? And give us the stepping stones on how you ended up where you are today.
One of the things that I think that we wanted, or I wanted, or I'm not even sure who wanted it, maybe I didn't want it, was parkour clothing line. And so much energy went into this. And then I realized one time, as I was helping a child in class who I loved this kid and I loved their parent, and I was down there on the floor feeling their toe in the front of the shoe, and I was like, I'm a shoe salesman. I don't want to be a shoe salesman. That's not what I want to be as a shoe salesman. I want to be a parkour gym owner. And so, I spent so much time, energy, and effort on trying to make clothes that people liked, which is impossible. Fun, quick anecdote. We tried 12 different tank tops. We gave them to 6 women in our gym. Each of those women picked a different tank top that was their favorite. And we put 3 in the store and sold 0 over the next 4 years. Literally 0. And so it was so hard. And we wanted to provide something specifically for women. We put such an inordinate, disproportionate amount into trying to get a product that the women would like. And it was just so hard. They loved their Lululemon, their whatever else. They already had something they liked. They had a shape, a size that fit them well, that they already liked. And us trying to figure that out, like Nike has billions and billions of dollars, and they change stuff all the time. All these huge clothing companies have literally billions of dollars, world-class designers, and I'm going to make a better shirt? No. So, that was definitely one place I wish we spent a lot less energy. If I had just outsourced shirts, if I had 2 shirts available, one with somebody jumping like this and one with the APK logo, that would have been enough. I do love that we were given the opportunity first by K-Swiss to help have input on literally the first shoes made specifically for parkour. If you remember the old K-Swiss bowling shoes.
I love the Ariakis. I wore the purple, green, and white Ariakis to my prom.
Yes, those were so cool, and they were weird. They looked like shoes, not sneakers. But we were so grateful to be part of that. I'm so grateful. I'm still part of Olo. I'm on the advisory board. I love Olo. I love Chip and what he's doing. And they now have some really incredible sneakers for parkour. They're using a new Michelin compound on the sole that is just phenomenal. And that has taken 7 iterations from an industry leader making shoes. So, I think that again, I'm grateful to be part of that, but it's not what I want to do. And I think that a lot of the parkour community's resource, frankly, has been spent on that. I look at all the time that Tempest spent, and they had some awesome stuff. Where did it fit in? I don't know. I mean, maybe that was a critical part of our culture that needed to happen. I just wish I stopped it sooner for APK and focused on other things, focusing on equipment sales and home training programs and things like that are the things that I and we are good at. And I want to say, anything where I say talking about APK is just complete BS, because there's so many people, Travis Graves, Jesse Woody, so many coaches and great people that have contributed, the tribe, as you mentioned, over the years, that that are really what made APK what it is. So forgive me when I say I mean we, and it really was all of us who did anything good that came out of APK.
Yeah, it definitely takes a village to raise a business. That's for sure true. Travis, if you're listening to this, shout out to you. How's it going? Haven't seen you in a little while. Okay, so you're saying that for you and for APK's mission, actually, let's hold it right there for a moment. What is do you have like a one-liner for what APK's mission is?
I do. I probably don't. I don't have it. I should have memorized it before this call. We have a written mission statement, vision statement that I revisit all the time. But effectively, I'm going to go on a slight tangent and talk about why parkour is important to me. To me, I can boil it down to one thing that is what's important to me about people learning parkour and training parkour. And that is, once you have fallen down and picked yourself up, you will never look at another person on the ground without offering your hand to pick them up. To me, that is the core of parkour training, is we fall, we fail all the time. We fail over and over and over and over. And parkour is just learning to pick ourselves up. And when we do that, we become better citizens. We become more likely to help the people around us. And to me, that's the true value of parkour training. So it's physical, it's mental, it's I could list 1,000 benefits of parkour training, but to me, just making better citizens is really the core of it. And that's APK's mission, is to get the benefits of parkour training out to as many people as possible. Excellent.
That's a great way to put it. It's super in line with the value that I see with parkour, and the thing that a lot of the parents at the gyms that I own, the reason why they even keep their kids in it at all is because of how parkour shapes them to be humans on the planet. So great job boiling that down for sure. And the reason why I ask what the mission is because it sounds like t-shirts didn't get you towards that goal. You know, it took a lot of time, took a lot of money, took a lot of your attention. And you, at some point, and I think now you guys either sell very little or not at all clothing on your website. So the point there is, like, if you know what your mission is, you know the direction you want to be traveling, you, Mark, had the foresight to say, you know what, this tentacle, me doing clothing is taking up too many resources and it's time to cut it. And my experience of you in the last few years is that the direction you're moving in now, which is very in line, I'll let you explain what you're doing now, very in line with what you just said your mission is. It seems like you've been able to put all your thrusters towards that, you know, all your brain power and your energy, which is finite for everyone throughout the day, you know. So when it's all focused into one spot, and you've cut off those things that were maybe good ideas, you know, good in air quotes, but just not right for your business. And now you're moving in the direction you are. So glad to hear that you made those pivots. If there's anything else you like cut off along the way to focus yourself on what you're doing now, like, feel free to share them here. And then what is APK up to now?
So the hardest tentacle to cut off, I might even cry when I say this, was closing the gym. I loved that place so much, and I loved those people so much, and that community, that was a close community. Those were neighbors, those were friends, those were family that, you know, different. I love the online community. I love the parkour community at large, but people that you could reach out and touch every day, and kids that came to our classes. We had kids that came 4 times a week. So, you know, we have their parents that I still go to their house for dinner and sleepovers, and just, you know, they're still friends of mine. And one of my best friends from the gym comes and lives in my house every once in a while. So, you know, those were just relationships that were, you know, so special to me. And closing that was extremely difficult. I would never be able to do the things that we're doing now and still have the gym. And so that was a tough decision. One of the toughest decisions I ever made, but it was the right decision. So
how did you know to make that decision? What happened?
So if I have a superpower, it's having an extremely hard head. I am stubborn and stupid, and I will do the same thing wrong over and over and over and over and over and over and over. And like sometimes even enjoy the pain and the bleeding and the suffering. I don't know why. Like, I don't know, maybe that's a defect or something. But yeah, it just at some point, I think it became more important to me to get parkour to more people than any specific ideal that I had in my head. And I think that's very hard. I think it's hard for me, and I think it's hard for a lot of people. One of the things that I talk about a lot is getting what you want is actually very easy. Knowing what you want is incredibly hard. I don't think most people know what they want. If I say, what do you want? Oh, well, I want this and that and that and that. But do you really? I feel like, and maybe this is just my own projection, but I feel like we all have these ideals, and not all of them really belong to us. Not all of them fit our own personal core missions, but they are ideals. They're things that we have, the way that we dress, the music that we listen to. All of these choices that we've made are skins that we've kind of piled on. And I don't think we, excuse me, I don't think a lot of us, or at least myself, do a good enough job of shedding those skins once we've outgrown them. So for me, I hung on to them.
It's hard to shed those skins because oftentimes we can't even tell that we're wearing them. You know, we're just acting them out as if it is us. And I've come across this already in the few years that Jimmy and I have been in business together, you know, working one-on-one with people, having them very closely examine what it is they say that they want, and then how correlate their actions are with that. You know, are you actually taking actions with that? And I think it takes a tremendous amount of courage to chop off the limbs that aren't serving you towards your mission, you know. And it also takes a heavy amount of examination, and that examination, there are so many different paths to the same point, to discovering those things about yourself. But it really helps to have people that have been in the same situations that you have, that may be able to point out those tendencies. You know, one really big tendency that I've noticed about gym owners is a self-sacrificial tendency. You know, the tendency to kind of put themselves like last, very, very last. You know, they're paying themselves last. They're often working more than anyone. There's often an experience of like, people don't care as much as I do, you know, and that's a function of the disproportionate amount of work, and there's no structure to support them. So as you're sharing your experience, I can just really relate to what I've already seen myself. And it's difficult. It's difficult to examine yourself and say, wow, you know, what do I want? If I really want to share parkour with as many people as possible, that's going to require that I let go of this thing that I love so dearly. And, you know, as you were sharing, like, I could feel the emotion that's there. I've seen the impact that having a gym and a community just disappearing, closing down can have, you know. So yeah, I can relate, you know, I can empathize too.
Yeah. And I love everything you just said is great. Two things really stand out to me. One, you don't even know you're wearing that skin. And I think that's where having a mentor can be so critical, is I think that we don't know that our own habits are habits. They're just us. We just do it, right? And we don't often enough look in the mirror. And it does take courage. That's the other thing that you said that really stood out to me, is the amount of courage required to face yourself is so understated in our world, in our society. We talk about self-help and improvement and all these things. We don't talk about that it's effing scary. It's downright, it's terrifying to actually look at yourself in the mirror and say, am I doing the things that I want to do for me? Am I putting myself, again, selfish, putting myself first enough that I will be able to continue to provide the things I'm providing for other people? And you just said, they're paying themselves last. They're doing more work than anybody else. They obviously care more than anybody else because it is literally their baby, right? So there's never going to be anyone that cares as much as you do about your own business. And there's my favorite kind of joke about entrepreneurs is they're the people who are willing to work 80 hours a week so they don't have to work 40 hours a week. Right? So
Yep. Yeah, and that's why I have so much respect and like honestly pride for the clients that we've worked with so far, because I watch them like take some very bold steps forward to creating better communities and better situations. You know, charging people more money, you know, is a very scary like just situation to navigate as a business owner. And so watching them navigate that successfully, watch them send that email out, and then the parents are all like, it's about darn time you started charging more. We've been waiting to support you. We've been waiting for you to charge more. I'm going to buy a year-long package, you know, like that's actually stuff that happens. And then the business owners get to see, oh my gosh, like there's actually a huge community that wants to contribute to me. I feel so much like respect and pride for the people that I've worked with, really, that are taking those bold steps forward, because it is scary. It's super scary. It's way more comfortable to, you know, work with your 50 to 85 students, you know, and your 3 coaches that you knew and you grew up with. And it's scary to scale and say, you know what, I actually do want to make a difference on the planet. I actually do want to reach 1 million people. And to do that, well, you've got to grow a bigger head or a second one and shed all of these preconceived notions that you've picked up about money, about working with people, about, you know, structures and systems. You're going to have to learn about business. You know, passion isn't really going to float the ship at the end of the day. You have to really develop a new learning and education. And I hear you did that like so stubbornly, one step at a time, stumbling upon every roadblock, but at the same time learning, you know, what to do and what not to do, which is insanely valuable.
Yeah, I'll give another shout out to Travis Graves. He has one of my favorite quotes, which I'm sure doesn't come from him, but it comes from him to me. And that is, nothing changes if nothing changes. Change is hard, but if you don't change things, they are going to stay the same. And you can, and I see this with so many, especially small business owners, parkour gym owners. The difference between you working 80 hours a week and you working 100 hours a week is you just made yourself 20 hours more stressed out. That's the only difference. You didn't change anything. You didn't reach more people. You didn't help more people. You didn't give them a better product. In fact, you might have given them a worse version of yourself because you're just that much more stressed out. Where if you prioritized, and one of my favorite concepts is the one thing. There's a great book called The One Thing. And it's if you could do the one thing that either that has the most impact effectively, if you do the one thing that has the most impact every single day, then you will be successful. And it's hard to find that one thing. I actually have a calendar and I have a frog stamp because there's an expression called eat a frog first thing in the morning.
Eat the frog. Yes, I love that.
I have a calendar with a frog stamp, and every day I'm like, what is the most important thing that and I've actually split it now because there are still 2, the most important thing I have to do and the most important thing I want to do. because there will still be things that you have to do. Those things are there, and we can't deny that, and we can't pretend that they don't exist. So there are still things that drive me, but I've also decided that every day I'm going to drive something. And so I have a red stamp and a blue stamp for the frog that drives me. Did I do the most important thing? Like, if I have to pay a tax bill today, I have to do that, right? That's still a blue stamp. It's still a frog. It's still the most important thing. Did it move my business forward? No, but it didn't get my business shut down either. But did I also do that marketing thing? Did I do that creative thing? Did I do that new offering? Did I do that 2 hours of just thought work on what is the next step? Where are we going? So I think that's critical to keep both of those in mind.
Yeah, you can hear it too. You can hear how important it is as a value to you to make sure that the time that you are investing in something is actually making a difference and is actually impacting what you want it to impact. And, you know, Jimmy gave a talk at Art of Retreat where he had a simple but very brilliant matrix. It was a little grid, a little four-way grid, and it was just a simple way to determine what you were investing your time in. Is what you're investing your time in going to take a long time and have a small impact? Is it going to take a long time and have a big impact? Or is it going to take a small amount of time and have a small impact? Or is it going to take a small amount of time and have a big impact? And that category right there is where you want to have most of your actions, you know? And so taking some time, really, I can hear this is like a super important skill you've developed. Taking time to examine, wow, what am I investing my time in, and how much of it is actually having an impact on what's important to me. And, you know, that's something that we really look at together, Jimmy and I. What are you putting your time in? Can we take that time away? Can we recapture some of that time? And can we reinvest it into different areas of the business that are actually going to move the needle where you want it? And maybe that needle is more money. Maybe that needle is you're miserable and depressed from running the gym and doing everything, you know? Maybe the needle is investing in your culture and community and developing an authentic space. But either way, it takes time to move any of those needles, any of them. And so knowing how to move those needles is important for sure. But also, man, it was so brilliant how you said most of the time people don't know what they want. And it's not that they don't know what to do. I will come across that as well. People know exactly what to do to move needles, but they're just not doing it for one reason or another. And that's nuanced work to figure out, why is it that you don't want to move the needle? And when we can uncover that gunk as well, then we can move forward. And maybe that's an aversion to making money. You know how to make money, you just don't want to. You know, or maybe it's a really tough conversation that you have to have with an employee that you know you have to have, but you're conflict avoidant, and so you're just not taking that action because you want to be a good guy. You know, you don't want to ruffle the feathers. So we've come across that, and I can just hear how important that is to you as well, Mark. And I just think it's important to highlight.
Yeah, I was in Jimmy's talk and it was great. So that's definitely. You know, I know that you guys make a lot of those resources available, and I think that you are really providing valuable stuff that people should be checking out for sure.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, he was in the front row. I remember that. Yeah, and on Chris's note of you know what to do, you're just not doing it. A lot of times we find gym owners who, and you know, not just parkour gym owners, I'm talking about parkour business owners because you're trying to affect the whole industry. They know the thing they have to do, and they also do it. And then they turn around and ask, you know, mentor, I did it, it doesn't work. But when we examine that, and it's like, you posted on Facebook once in the last month, so you think you did social media marketing, when in reality, our minimum is twice a day. You know, so we're whatever 15, 30xing what you're doing, or you sent one email last month, when really like we're sending, you know, multiple a week. So a lot of times it's yes, that is what to do, but the quantity or the quality, you know, you need to do more of it. After you're doing more of it, then you need to do more better of it. You know, so a lot of times there's that nuance to it, and having a perspective to compare it to, like what quantity and what quality equals actually achieving the result you want. That's when having a community of business owners who's been down the path before really helps give you perspective, and sometimes really just slaps you on the ass because you're like, wow, I thought I knew what it took, and I need to do 50x more if I actually want to make an impact on the communal or global level here. Okay, so
The way I
Mark,
think about that, I just want to add one thing to that.
yeah,
It's just a way that helps me to achieve things is actions don't achieve things, habits achieve things, right?
Mhm.
Because again, you can do one thing that's brilliant, that's perfect. It's like throwing a pebble into a lake. It might make some ripples, but it's not raising the lake, right? But if you throw in a pebble every minute or every 5 minutes, you're raising that tide. So yeah, you need to do things consistently. Consistency is really the key. Everyone who asks me, I've had probably 1,000 people ask me over the years, how do I start a parkour community? And the one thing I say is consistency. Go train at the same place every Saturday at 9 a.m. and tell people you're going to be there. And for the first 5 weeks, nobody's going to show up. And week 6, someone's going to be like, oh man, I've been watching this and I've been wanting to do it, and I just haven't been able to. And what happens is so many of those people go and do it 3 times and nobody shows up and they leave. And if we did that, there wouldn't have been Primal Fitness, because we literally had no customers for our first 6 weeks. We had 1 customer in our first 6 weeks. And so, you know, it took time. It took time and time and time and again. And you just have to keep getting that message out there. Even they say in this thing called Manager Tools, which is one of my favorite things, they say that in a good company where people want to achieve things and everybody's well-intentioned, it takes 7 times of hearing the message for it to really sink in. And that's when people are trying, right? When people want something, they have to hear it 7 times before they act on it. So if you think that sending out 2 emails a month is marketing, it's just not.
we need to be reminded more than we are taught. That's one of my favorite sayings on exactly that idea. Manager Tools. I also like Manager Tools. I'll link that in the show notes. And I first discovered it from you mentioning it, Mark, in some Facebook group decades ago or ages ago. I don't know. Okay. So let's look at what APK is doing now. Because I know what you're doing now is you're in schools, you're providing equipment, you're educating teachers. And as I said a little while ago, that's like, so is your mission of connecting the individual to that life-changing process of parkour. And because you're in schools, you are at the source of kids being educated on how to be humans. So it's like such an epic connection to your mission. How did you get in there? What really are you doing? Is it working as a business? Yeah, tell us what you're up to.
So one of the most common questions I get is, how do you get into schools? And the answer is consistency. We did probably 30 events for free at local schools. And one parent 2 years later told the head of health and physical education what a great time their kid had at a free pop-up event that we did one morning on a walk to school day. And that one tip is what got parkour into 30 DC public schools. Every 7th grader in DC public school does parkour. Over 35,000 kids have been through the program now. So, and that was literally one parent, but it was one parent out of 30 events that we did. So there are probably, I don't know, 30 times 250 parents that saw it, but you need that one that says, wow, this was great. That person has the spark. Sometimes it's a single person in the PTA who just is willing to be the champion of the idea and carry it forward. But you just have to provide, and this is something that Two Brain, I think it's might even be their motto, is help first, right? So I didn't go in saying, I want to sell you parkour. We went in just showing them what parkour was, literally providing them with parkour for free. And it took time and time and time and time again until they said, wow, this really is a great thing that the kids enjoy and has these benefits. We'll come check it out. And sure enough, they did. And when we put 5 or 6 of the administrators through a class, they were very impressed that although there was a broad range of their athletic ability, their motivations, and all of those things, as there are with any group of people, we were able to meet each of them in a way that was suitable for each of them as an individual while doing one coherent class. So we didn't split them up in 6 and say, okay, you get vanilla ice cream and you get strawberry and you get chocolate and you're all happy. It was, hey, we have this parkour training that we're able to meet all of you at your own level as we go through these, for lack of a better term, drills, right? Skill exercises, whatever you want to call them, and able to meet people through games, activities, drills, and coaching. And so they saw that and were very impressed with it and decided to put it into the schools. And so now we, and this is, again, Travis Graves worked a lot on the curriculum with a couple of school teachers. We now teach the DC phys ed teachers every year on their professional development day. We teach them how to run the 8-unit parkour class. And so we obviously have a lot more reach that way. I think a lot of people, especially, again, parkour people, are very do-it-yourself and hands-on. And that's again, a double-edged sword, because one person can only coach so many people. And again, there's such a huge burnout rate and all those other things. But if you coach coaches, you can reach a lot more people. And I think that people just need to realize, again, when the goal is introducing thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people to parkour, that's not going to be me showing someone how to do anything, right? It's going to be us as an organization creating materials, creating systems, processes that work repeatedly, safely, time and time again, no matter the audience. And we can teach them how to do that repeatedly in a way that makes it fun, engaging for their students. And that's what I think has helped us be successful in this endeavor.
My hat off to you for being able to impact, 30,000 plus students. And if that's what every 7th grader does, from here into the foreseeable future, your impact is going to get to 60, 90, 120,000. And how many of those kids will fall in love with parkour and will become coaches on their own and will start their own group? So your unseen impact is going to propagate, and that's really cool to have that position. So knowing that what you're up to, Mark, is directly helping our mission of 1 million people parkour, you're definitely an ally. So congratulations to you, man. Very cool to hear.
Thank you.
One other big thing, just to jump in as well and just to add on, is I think it's so cool that parkour is an educator's education tool. We literally are educating educators on a big one is falling safely. But parkour covers so much, like physical strength, mental strength, emotional development, social development, dealing with competitive situations and the high emotions that come along with that, remaining humble in the face of victory, and just dealing with defeat well and being a good loser when you lose a game. All that stuff can be found in a parkour class, and teaching teachers how to give them access to that is huge. There's so many studies that show the type of neurological connections that child's brains make when they're playing and learning at the same time. So I just think it's so important, especially if you look at the current state of our physical health in America as well. Having parkour be a part of and a fundamental part of our education system, I don't think there's more important work that could be done. You know what I mean? So yeah.
Yeah, I agree, and we tie it in, and it's great. We have so many of the teachers in DC public schools in particular we have some like super fans, and so they are actually giving presentations on parkour and connecting it with SEL, socio-emotional learning. And so we're getting the benefit of having those people really as part of American Parkour, because they're now helping us develop our materials. And so to the point, this year at the national conference, SHAPE is the Society for Health and Physical Education. At this year's SHAPE conference, there were three presentations on parkour. So we talked about more gas stations. There were 3 presentations on parkour at the National Conference for Health and Physical Education. So one of them was delivered by Miriam Kenyon, head of health and PE for DC Public Schools. And she had Travis and I there kind of as her backup singers, but then also doing the physical part of it, and with our equipment and curriculum there for, I think we had almost 200 teachers in the room for that, experiencing it. So probably about 80 of them did the physical part, and a lot were just in the periphery, just observing it. And then there was another great presentation done by a guy who did a study on the engagement. When they did parkour in his public school, I think in Oregon, the engagement shot up like 300%. So kids are interested in it. And then finally, just Travis and I did our own presentation on it for the teachers in one of the more physical kind of things. But it was great to have that. And now I've started having teachers be our coaches at some of our outdoor parks and recs events. So as we're traveling to places outside of DC doing parks and rec pop-ups with both chase tag and parkour, I'm inviting local PE teachers to come and coach with us, because for most of it, again, we're talking about a kids obstacle course that's pretty set up. It's very basic parkour. They're doing some vaults, they're doing some balance, they're doing some precisions. Most PE teachers, like the one who helped us most recently, coached gymnastics for 22 years. So she could easily step in and do balance, vaulting, and precisions with just maybe 20 minutes of training on, and she just got it, right? She got it. She was there because she wanted to. She saw the opportunity and was excited about it. She's now taken it back to her school board and said, hey, this is something that we need to be doing. So
excellent. Yeah, I definitely see a future where parkour is in multiple schools, school districts, whole entire regions across the country. What do you think, Mark, is needed to expedite that? If I gave you a challenge, God himself, whoever your God is, showed up and said, Mark, you need to get this into all the schools across all the nation, and you have 2 years to do it. How would you take that on? What amplifies this?
2 years. I was shooting for 10. So
okay, he strikes a bargain and says you can do it in 5. How do you do it in 5 years?
Yeah. So my 5-year goal is 10 school districts. So that's my 5-year goal, because DC has had such a huge impact. We have summer enrichment programs, after school programs. We do their track and field day is a parkour jam. So that's coming up May 23rd. We're going to have 350 kids at a parkour jam as their track and field day. Oh, so, man. And I'd love to do that with more schools. I think that one of the hurdles is the perception of parkour because of the media that's produced by the parkour community, and this is not, it's not good or bad, but when you show people, I'm gonna point out Joe Scandrick, who is just clearly one of the most capable human beings, one of the brain of Joe Scandrick to do the things that Joe is doing is just superhuman, so far beyond what most people could begin to visualize. Most people wouldn't do in a video game what Joe does in real life. But then when these are the videos that are shown, there's a perception around parkour in terms of what it is, how safe it is or isn't. And so I think that, and people, this is proven by the news and media, people love bad news. People love to watch a train wreck. We just do. And good news goes away very quickly. And there's a neat kind of anthropological, I think that's the right word, root for this, which is we are problem solvers. So when there's a problem, we're very vested. When something's great, we go, oh, that's great, and it's gone. But when there's a problem, we're like, oh, there's a problem. There's something to solve. We can do this. We can do this. So we gravitate towards negativity in a way because the good stuff doesn't need to be fixed. It's already there. It's good. It's great. It's done.
You can see that on my Instagram, man. Like my fails have like millions of views, and failing a backflip, millions of views. Landing a triple twist on concrete, first in the world, couple thousand.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's just that just is, right? It simply is. You can verify it. Jimmy can verify, anybody can verify that. That's why they show bad stuff on the news, because that's what gets all the views. And so that's tough to overcome. So convincing schools that parkour is safe is convincing schools that what they think of as parkour, and again, we talk about these skins that we don't even know we're wearing, what they think of as parkour is not what parkour is. And it's not what our parkour is, and it's not what we want to teach kids. I had parents show up to the gym and be like, so you're going to throw my kid off the roof? Like, of course not, right? That's day 2, not day 1. Give us some time. So just having people understand, and I think that we're starting to get to this point, and this is something I discuss a lot. I'll go through it really briefly, is we're in what I call the saddle. So parkour had a fad phase where it was cool, it was neat, a ton of people tried it, a ton of people were into it, and that died. And the good news is we're in the saddle, we're in the bottom of that, starting to ramp back up. The good news is the next phase is the real phase. The next phase is people understanding that parkour is an effective training method for body and mind, and that it's a worthwhile venture, right? The difference between a fad, which is fun or cool or whatever, is, oh yeah, I'm going to do that because it's fun or cool. And then there's a worthwhile venture. I'm going to commit my time to doing this because it will get me the things that I want. The abs, the whatever people's fitness goals are motivated by, right? People are starting to understand that parkour is a path to that. But I think that our job as the community, and this is the tough work, because this is not fun, it's not glamorous, it's an uphill battle all the way, is showing people that how effective parkour is at creating a better life for anyone who practices it. And I think that doesn't get shown in videos, right? It's a video of a move. Parkour is not a movement. Parkour is a training method. It has movements, but those movements are not parkour, right? Parkour is the training method. It's the benefits received over time by going through the training that are really important, but those aren't glamorous.
Yeah, you almost
Yeah,
need a documentary here on Netflix or something where you're shown an athlete, maybe a kid or an adult who doesn't think that they're an athlete, can't jump up to a box with 2 feet without being just terrified. And the documentary is like them taking that on with a coach who's caring and showing like, no, actually you can jump a little higher than you think. Let's go through the progressions. And then the next day, like you can take yourself through this parkour course, even though you think you can't. And maybe there's like a cut scene where the person keeps failing and they are frustrated and they want to quit and they walk out of the gym, and that's the end of the episode because it's like, and maybe they'll quit parkour right here, come back next episode or whatever. But it takes so long to tell that story. It takes literally an entire documentary series, which is why it doesn't work on Instagram, because there's so many moments of little tiny blinks of success and character building moments and moments where you feel like you're defeated or you have failed, and it just takes time and repetition and a coach and a community, which is why the parkour community is like such a thing in our sport. The people around you like encouraging you to help find your own best version of yourself in that moment on that topic you're trying to get through, whether that's like learn this hard move or like get past that mental hurdle of like, it's okay if you're not going to be the best in the world. It's okay if you like need to fail a little bit more than that person online who you just saw them only succeed because that's the only thing they put on the internet, and then after maybe 10 episodes, that little kid or that young adult or that, maybe that 50-year-old woman, whoever the subject is, after their parkour journey has been taken on, they emerge as this powerful person who has these new images of themselves, this new story of themselves, and also just a stronger, more capable body. And giving that whole documentary, which doesn't exist yet, and we should make one, to the school boards, to the parents, to the decision makers, of saying this actually is parkour. It's not the guy who just jumped off a 5-story parking garage and grabbed onto a pole, a street light, and slid down. Although that's sick, he got there at the end of a massively long journey. So yeah, Mark, I hear you. If we could just give that documentary, give that journey of what parkour really looks like for the average person who struggles with themselves, even as an athlete, mental health wise, physically wise, and show them how huge it can be for people, for kids, teens, and adults. That's really the work all of us on this conversation are really trying to affect here. So I love that you pointed that out. And anyone who is making content about parkour or talking to a parent or talking to a decision maker at a school board, like, it's important to realize that they might have that in their head. They might have only seen, the Office episode or some insane parkour clip. And it's really up to us as storytellers and as communicators to give what parkour really is and how it impacted our lives and how we can impact society at large also. So I love that topic, Mark. Thank you for saying that.
That's the biggest thing too, is all of us know what parkour can make available. It lives with us already. Like that documentary that you're talking about, Jimmy, like that's my life, man. That's your life, Mark. That's your life, Jimmy. Like, and at 30, 40, 50 years old, there are still people in the community that are pushing themselves and training and encouraging people to seek out parkour. And, I really view it as my job to provide coaches and parkour gym owners and entrepreneurs with the resources that they need to provide that type of education to the general public so that they do know what parkour is, and so that people can come to value it in the same way that I've come to value it, or in different ways, but the value's there. So I think that's something, yeah, like you were saying, Jimmy, we're all on the same team for that here, and are really attempting to make that difference. And it's going to take equipping every educator with the tools necessary to fight that uphill battle. Like, yeah, you're going to have conversations with people. I don't know how many times I've talked to a parent. They're like, I couldn't do that. I'd break my neck. No, you wouldn't. Come out here on the floor right now and do this step vault with me and feel how good it feels to just like extend your hip on a step vault. It's awesome, and it's easy. So I love that.
Yeah, there's a graph that I draw on the whiteboard for every adult class that I teach, and it's basically, think of like a fried egg, right? You've got this little circle in the center, and then you've got this kind of big blobby thing around it, and the big blobby thing is what people are capable of, and the little dot in the center is what they think they're capable of, right? And I talk about parkour training as being the gap of getting that circle to match what you're actually capable of. It's learning what you're capable of. And as you do it, what you're capable of grows, but what you think you're capable of grows much faster than what you're capable of. So the first thing you do is figure out that you can do that step vault. You can jump with both feet. Yes, it's scary. And I think that we need to do a good job and be conscious of how scary that is. There's a thing that I talk about with coaches, which is, don't forget that the beginner doesn't change, because as coaches level up, they're like, oh, I want to teach someone a double A twist because they just got their double A twist and they're so excited about it. And so, they get a class and they're like, all right, we're going to do double A twists. I'm like, no, they're still on precision jumps. Their day one is always going to be their day one. And there are always going to be people in that class who are terrified to lift both feet off the floor at the same time. And that's okay. It's not good or bad. It just is. And we need to always meet people at that level, no matter what level we're at, because that's where they are. And it's getting them to get both feet off the ground is one of the biggest accomplishments you can have as a coach, because overcoming that first fear gets them on the path to being okay with facing those fears.
Yeah, gold is coming out of your mouth right now for sure. As my brain's really fresh on class structure right now, and in every single element of a class, whether it's warm up or conditioning or a skills station or a game or a course, you have to make sure that you're creating an environment that is approachable for any person that enters your space, whether that's someone that is really advanced that wants to be pushed and they're there to experience challenge, or someone, didn't have any time to develop formulative social skills during COVID, and they, can barely be with a group and barely focus on instruction. You have to be aware of that. You have to be aware that you may confront that and be prepared for that. It's so important. So I think that's, super, super key, Mark.
Yeah, I always say that the hardest thing or the most critical skill in being a coach is running a 3-ring circus. It's not, and I'm a technical person, so I gravitate towards technical things, progressions on a movement or whatever. Those are almost irrelevant because you're dealing with humans, and you're dealing with so many humans. Like you said, you don't know what someone's struggling with that day, what someone's afraid of. And then I see often a lot of coaches don't know how to deal with that one person. I had a guy who I would literally triple the warm-up for, and he would still be bored. And I'd be like, all right, his name was Nate, and he was just this beast athlete. He's an adult who came into our classes, and whatever the warm-up was, I'd literally triple it. Nate, you do 3 times everything, and he would, and he'd be barely breaking a sweat, and other people would be dying. But you have to meet Nate at the same time as you're meeting Mark, who's slow and can't do his 10 precision jumps in the time that Nate can do 50, right? So that,
Nate,
to me,
if you're listening to this call, I want to see you at SPL, okay? But yes, absolutely, you want to cater your class to the advanced and to the people who haven't developed those skills yet.
Yeah, it's got to be everybody. You've got to meet everybody at a level that puts them in that, I forget the name for this, but there's a correct challenge zone, right? If you're not challenged enough, you're bored. If you're too challenged, you're stressed. There's a correct challenge zone, but it's different for every person. And so figuring that out through communicating with people, through reading them, their body language, even if they're a lot of people who need the most help won't verbalize things or won't verbalize them well, or will be afraid to say they don't know, right? That's scary, being in a class and being afraid to admit that you're afraid of something, right? We have this big stigma on fear and failure. And I think that we need to be the facilitators of opening that up and saying, hey, you know what? It's okay to be scared of jumping on a 2x4. Like, if jumping on a 2x4 and lifting both feet off the ground 2 inches is scary for you, fantastic. It's scary for you. Congratulations. Face that fear. You know, whatever that fear is, doesn't matter what it is. We need to help people wherever they are.
Absolutely. Lots of great topics here, Mark. I think as we get to wrapping up this interview, I definitely can see us having you on again in the future, because, you know, I've been taking a couple notes here along the way, and there's so many other tangents we could go into, so many topics that I know I've seen you progress through or we've interacted with together that we haven't even touched on in this conversation. So definitely a wealth of wisdom. Is there any last things you want to leave us with here?
I think there was one that I was hoping, and maybe this will be next episode with me and Christopher, is one thing that I would love, excuse me, one thing that I would love to help the parkour business owners with is what I call lighting the path. And I think that one of the biggest challenges we have is member retention and member engagement, where we do have kids coming once a week instead of 4 times a week. And for me, one of the biggest areas for opportunity there is showing them what they're going to learn next time. I think a lot of times the coach says, okay, bye. In APK Academy, the coach was tasked with asking every single person when they were coming in again and what they were working on, and asking them
Mark,
that as they're walking out the door.
Mark, you're spoiling some material that's going to be released soon. It's okay, because I can talk about it now. Maybe by the time this is released, that will be out. But I was just having a conversation with a general manager about how important it is to have a distinct section at the end of class that it's like, you know, the game time ends or the course ends or the skill practice ends, and then there's this 3 to 5 minutes where you are creating the future with that person, what their goals are, what they're looking forward to, what they're working on next, you know. And if your curriculum, your rotation is powerful and it's set up and you have a good head coach that has been putting some intellectual effort into things, then you can very easily say, next week's skill practice is this, next week's game is this, and you should have this to look forward to. And you can also be planting those seeds throughout class. Oh, we're not going to get to that game this time, but next week it's going to be set up. I have a special plan for it. Or, yeah, dude, I love that you want to practice Kongs. Today we're practicing lazy vaults, but next week we're specifically practicing on connecting vaults. So you can practice Kongs out of your lazy then. You know, so creating that future, and then also acknowledging people for what they've accomplished, the bravery that it takes to even show up to class. A lot of that can happen in that distinct space, but a coach has to create it. It can't be like a wishy-washy, you know. I really train coaches to deliver that section of class as if it's like a public speaking thing, you know, like a seminar, a very short few minutes. Yeah.
That is the most important part of class, the most important part, because if they don't come back, they're not learning anything else from you.
Yeah,
absolutely. A big thing that we do at the gym is on their first day, we have a whole process for how coaches create an amazing first experience, how they like connect them back to the enrollment team at the front to sort of ensure that they come back. Because if you lose them on day 1, you for sure lose them forever. You lose them on day 3, or 12, you for sure lose them forever. So yeah, there's so many little touch points in how you can optimize for someone's enjoyment and get someone to the point to where they think that parkour is their sport. They have ownership in it. Mark, any other like little hacks or tricks that you think you discovered with APK Academy on this topic?
Well, the other thing I want to say on that, and for me, it's kind of a little drop the mic, is how are you as a business owner doing that for your coaches? So I think that a lot of business people think about their customer journey and they don't apply the same thing to their employee journey. And to me, that's critical, because your employees are your business. Your coaches are the product that you're selling to your customers, and they are the interface to your customer. And so what is your coach's opportunity to grow? How are you taking that same time, that same public speech with your coach and saying, hey, here's what you're going to learn. Here's how you're going to grow as a person within this business over the next 6 months, over the next 3 years. Here's how we're investing in you so that you can continue to grow, so that our business continues to grow. So I think that's critical. And I guess one of the ways that we did that at Primal/APK Academy was through a book club. And we had a book club, and they were great books like Getting Things Done, The One Thing, Who Will Do What by When. So just some great books that everybody benefits from, but using them, and here's the key, it's not reading the book that matters, because again, habits, not singular actions. We would take a chapter, and the homework would be, okay, how did you use this chapter in your job in the past week? Everybody needs to bring that to the meeting on Friday. Tell us how you use the thing that we learned in this chapter, how you use that this week, doing that for every chapter in the book. And by the time you're done, you've got 14 new habits or skills that you've built in that are now skins that you wear that you don't even think about, but they're new good habits that you have. And so I think that was one thing that we did that was really, really popular and worked well with coaches. And I feel like it made our employees feel like they were valued, and it was part of their job. They were paid for the time to read and the time to come to the meeting. And it was literally part of their job was to improve at what they were doing.
Love that. So you guys had a book club. They were paid to do it. It was part of their ascension as a coach and also as a human. So they felt like they weren't just there for the paycheck, but they were there for their own personal journey as well, which probably was huge in preventing burnout and keeping them with the company for longer. So keeping that institutional knowledge around. Yeah, that's absolutely a great thing to try on. Some other things we've seen is just having like a literal document that shows the coach's journey. So if they enter the business at what pay rate, what are they responsible for? Then they learn certain things, or they start doing certain things, their pay rate becomes X. Now what are they responsible for? And having those milestones that show the different pay rates, show the different accountabilities, the different skills that they might have acquired or are now acting within, all the way up through maybe what does it look like to become a head coach, or where can they bolt on other things like your coach plus social media. Having that thoughtful laid out document, at least in the form of like you've typed it up, that can do a lot to create the experience of having a career and create the experience of there's somewhere for me to go in this company. So if you are especially if you're a gym owner, that's a really critical piece, and you could have a book club kind of be the fuel that carries that along the way. And outside of a parkour gym, if you just have a team, like what is their ascension model for your team? So that's absolutely a great piece. Good mic drop.
I want to throw something on the end of that before the mic drop, and maybe this will be the mic drop, is I'm going to speak directly to you gym owners. The most important part of that ascension document is being tough, not giving that raise until the person demonstrates the behavior, because everybody else knows whether that person is meeting expectations or not. And if you falsely give those raises, you undermine that entire process. And that's what drives discontent among the group, is this person's getting paid more than me, but they're not doing more than me. So just be strict on that. Make sure, and the only way to do that, in my opinion, is one-on-ones. You actually have to have discussions with people, let them know the expectation, let them know when the expectation is being met and when it's not being met. And when it's not being met, let them know how to meet it. So it's not, I'm blaming you for not doing this. It's, I'm coaching you to do it next time. And that's when you will get the raise, is when you consistently demonstrate that you have this skill and that you are doing this job. That's when you get the raise.
Love it. All right. That's super good. Business owner, manager experience, advice at large, CEO advice. Just make sure that is occurring in your team. You got to be feeding into each other, mentoring each other for sure. Okay, Mark, that brings us to the end of that conversation. I would love to have you back on in the future because, even a double mic drop in one episode is pretty hard to, I'm sure you have plenty more mics in your back pocket to throw at the floor here. So thank you for coming on. Appreciate you with your generosity, with your sharing, and also your time. So Mark from American Parkour, thank you very much.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. It's great seeing you guys. And again, you're doing great work, and I'm excited to be now a little part of that. So thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Mark.